I found out my husband wanted to wear pantyhose because of a browser tab he forgot to close. Technically, it was my fault. I'm the one who grabbed his laptop instead of mine. It was a Tuesday night, that kind of beige midweek evening where everything feels slightly out of focus. I'd just come home from work, kicked off my flats by the door, and dumped my bag on the kitchen counter. The apartment was quiet except for the whir of the dishwasher. He'd already done the dishes, which meant I had one less excuse to avoid answering emails. My own laptop was somewhere in the bedroom under a pile of clean but unfolded laundry, and I didn't feel like tearing the mountain apart. His was right there on the dining table, glowing in that friendly, come use me way. He won't mind, I muttered, sliding into his chair. We have one of those relationships where phone passcodes and laptops aren't a state secret. I've used his computer before to print things, to sign for packages, to send myself a meme he'd forgotten to. I jiggled the trackpad to wake it up. The browser sprang to life with 3 tabs open across the top. The first was our shared calendar. The second was an article about some software update. The third? The third was a forum post with a title that made my brain stutter. First time out in skirt, heels, and sheer pantyhose. I finally did it. For a moment, I honestly thought I'd clicked something by accident. I hovered over the tab, waiting for my eyes to correct themselves, but the words didn't change. I clicked. The page filled with a story and a photo, a man about my husband's age wearing a knee-length black skirt, a simple blouse, and nude pantyhose that made his legs look smooth and impossibly shiny under streetlights. In the text, he talked about finding the courage to go for a walk around his neighborhood at night, the way the hem of the skirt swished, the sound of his heels on the pavement, the feel of the nylon hugging his calves. Everything in me went very still. My first stupid thought was, oh my God, did he get hacked? Then I saw the address bar. It wasn't porn. It wasn't some ad that had popped up uninvited. It was a community forum, thread after thread, with titles like, Any Other Guys Love Tights Under Jeans, and Wife Helped Me Pick Out My First Pair of Heels, and How Did You Explain Your Pantyhose Stash? I scrolled without meaning to. Been wearing pantyhose since I was a teenager, one man had written. Used to steal my mom's when they were fresh out of the package. Finally told my girlfriend last month, and she actually bought me my own. Still can't believe I'm not alone in this. My chest tightened. Not alone. My eyes flicked up to the top of the page, saw my husband's username in the corner. Logged in. Registered. Ethan. I sat there, fingers hovering over the trackpad, heart thudding like I'd just been caught doing something wrong, even though I was technically the one who'd stumbled onto his secret. I thought about closing the tab and pretending I'd never seen it. It was an option, technically, but the words on the screen burned after images into my brain. Girls, what did your husbands wear the first time you helped them? My cheeks flamed, even though no one was there to see my face. I forced myself to click away, pulled up my email like that would somehow erase what I'd seen. It didn't. I stared at my inbox for a full minute without absorbing a single subject line. Every time I blinked, I saw that picture of a man in a skirt and pantyhose, his posture both nervous and proud, and beneath it, all these responses from people cheering him on, telling their own stories. I felt, I don't even know. Shocked? Yes. Confused. A little betrayed that this whole world existed, and Ethan had never mentioned even being curious about it. Also, if I was being honest, something like ache, because the way that man described finally feeling the air on his legs and the swish of fabric and the click of heels, there was so much longing in it, so much relief. I shut the laptop gently and pushed back from the table, my chair scraping the floor. My hands were trembling. When Ethan came out of the bedroom a minute later, toweling his hair, I nearly jumped out of my skin. Hey, he said, pausing in the doorway. Water darkened the collar of his t-shirt, his hair stuck up in wet curls. You're home early? Yeah, I managed. Traffic was light. He crossed the room to kiss my forehead, then noticed the laptop. Oh, he said casually. You using that? I can get yours. No, I blurted too fast. It's fine. I scrambled to look normal, to not look like I'd just tripped over something private. His brow furrowed for a second, then smoothed. Okay, he said slowly. You good? Yep, I lied because I wasn't ready yet. Just tired. I spent the rest of the evening in a kind of daze. We cooked dinner together, our usual dance of chopping and stirring and bumping hips in the narrow kitchen. I heard myself laugh at his dumb jokes, ask about his day, tell him about my annoying client, like I was playing the role of Jenna in a normal marriage, while my brain replayed that tab over and over. Every once in a while, little puzzle pieces floated up in my memory, offhand comments he'd made that now sounded different. The way he once watched me pull on pantyhose before a wedding and said, I don't know how you do that without destroying them. Those look weirdly satisfying. The time he'd asked if my heels hurt and then added, half joking, honestly, I kind of wonder what they'd feel like just to walk around in for a minute. The way he'd watched my pleated skirt in the summer breeze a little too intently, like he was imagining more than just me wearing it. Could I have asked about those moments? Yes. Did I? No. I filed them away under quirky husband observations and moved on. Now, apparently, the file had exploded open. By the time we climbed into bed that night, my stomach was a knot. Ethan propped himself up with a book. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling, counting the tiny glow in the dark stars we'd stuck up there as a joke when we first moved in. Penny for your thoughts, he said eventually, sliding his hand over to rest on my wrist. You've been quiet. I swallowed. This was the moment where I could either keep pretending or jump off the cliff and see where we landed. I used your laptop earlier, I said. He stiffened almost imperceptibly. His hand stayed on my wrist, but his grip tightened. Yeah, he said lightly. Sorry if there were a million tabs open. I'm a digital hoarder. One tab in particular, I said, and I felt him freeze for real then. He turned his head slowly to look at me. In the soft lamplight, his face looked suddenly younger, like a kid who's just been caught sneaking cookies. Oh, he said. We stared at each other in that heavy space between the word and its weight. I wasn't snooping, I said quickly, because that part mattered to me. I just opened the browser and it was there. Men in skirts and heels, the stories. I only read one, but I trailed off, watching his throat work as he swallowed. You weren't supposed to see that, he said in a low voice. I figured, I replied. He sat up, closing his book and setting it on the nightstand with hands that weren't quite steady. Are you okay? He asked. It sounded like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to ask me that. I don't know yet, I said honestly. I'm processing. He nodded, staring at the comforter. I can explain, he said, if you want me to, or I can pretend it was some weird spam if that makes you feel better. If you say it was spam, I know you're lying, I said gently. You were logged in. He winced. Right. The silence stretched again, not quite comfortable. The question I wanted to ask felt huge in my mouth, but I pushed it out anyway. Do you ever wish you could wear that stuff too? I said quietly. The pantyhose, the skirts, the heels, like the guys on the site. His head snapped up, eyes wide. For a second, I thought he might deny it out of sheer reflex. Then something in his face crumpled. Yes, he whispered. I do. My chest tightened, but the room didn't spin. The ceiling didn't fall. The world didn't end. Okay, I said. My voice shook a little. How long? He let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped inside him for years. Since I was 14, maybe younger, he said. Whenever my mom would leave the house, I'd go into her room and steal a pair of pantyhose from her drawer, slippers sometimes, never for long. I'd just put them on, walk around, look at my legs in the mirror and feel like a version of me I wasn't allowed to be. He laughed weakly, no humor in it. It always felt too stupid to say out loud, he went on. Like, how do you tell someone, hey, I love you. I also really want to know what sheer tights feel like under a skirt and what it's like to hear my own heels on the floor without them thinking you're, I don't know, a pervert, or secretly wanting to be a woman, or lying about being straight, or all of the above. I felt a flicker of defensiveness at that. Did he really think so little of my ability to understand? But it was drowned out by how small his voice had gotten. Have you ever done it? I asked. Since we've been together? He hesitated. Once, he admitted. You were on a work trip. I took a pair of your pantyhose from the drawer, one of your skirts, those black heels you never wear because they pinch. I sat up, leaning back against the headboard, pulling my knees up to my chest. I thought I misplaced those pantyhose, I said, because my brain latches onto stupid details when it doesn't know what else to do. Yeah, he said, cheeks flushing. I put them back, but I snagged them a little, and I felt so guilty I almost threw them out and bought you a new pair. But then I thought that would be even harder to explain, so I just hoped you wouldn't notice. I did a quick inventory of my feelings. There was anger there, at being kept out of something so big, at the sneakiness. There was hurt. There was confusion about what this meant, if anything, for his sexuality, for our future. But there was also this unexpected tenderness, this picture in my head of him alone in our apartment, awkwardly shimmying into pantyhose, wobbling around in two small heels, heart hammering in his chest while he listened for my key in the lock. How did it feel? I asked, surprising myself. He blinked. What? The pantyhose, I said, heat creeping up my neck. The skirt, the heels, did it feel good? His shoulders sagged, some of the tension seeped out in disbelief. Honestly, he said, it felt amazing. Not in a kink way. I mean, sometimes yeah, there's something there, but mostly it just quieted something in my head. The way the nylon hugged my legs, the swish of the skirt when I moved, that little click of the heels on the tile, it made me feel light. Like I didn't have to be solid, sturdy Ethan for a minute. I could just exist. There was that ache again, sharper now. And the forum? I asked. The men in skirts and heels? He glanced at me, then looked down again. I found it last year, he said. I was looking up brands of pantyhose, he winced, and fell into a rabbit hole. Men posting pictures of themselves in skirts, talking about how their wives helped them pick outfits, how they finally wore sheer tights in public under their suits, how they realized they weren't alone. I started reading their stories, and I couldn't stop. It was like this window into a life I couldn't imagine ever having, one where I wasn't hiding. The tears in his eyes caught the lamplight. I figured it was safer to live it vicariously, he whispered, than to risk losing you by wanting what I want. His words hung there between us, fragile and heavy at the same time. I let myself feel the sting of that, of him assuming my love was that conditional, of him deciding without asking that I'd rather not know him than know this part. But underneath that sting was a deeper, quieter truth. I didn't want my marriage built on him pretending to be someone he wasn't, even if the real version came with pantyhose. I'm not going to lie and say I'm fine, I said after a long moment. I'm surprised and a little hurt that you felt you had to hide this, and I'm going to have to think about what it means for me, for us. He nodded quickly, blinking hard. I get that. I'm so sorry, Jenna. But I cut in gently. I'm also glad I know. Even if it's because you forgot to close a tab, I would rather have this conversation than have you be miserable in secret. He let out a shaky breath. So you don't think I'm a freak? He asked, voice so small it made my chest hurt. No, I said, and meant it. I think you're my husband, who happens to like the feel of pantyhose and the sound of heels. And that's a lot to take in. But it doesn't erase everything else. He scrubbed at his face with his hands, laughing a little in that way people do when they're trying not to cry. I honestly thought this would be the thing, he said. The thing that made you pack a bag and call your mom. Please don't tell my mom anything yet, I said automatically, and we both laughed. We sat there for a while in that soft, shaky laughter, like it was diffusing a bomb that had been ticking in the corner of our marriage. After the quiet settled again, I traced a pattern on the duvet with my fingertip, thinking, what if, I said slowly, we made a little space for this, here, in our home, instead of you stealing moments when I'm gone? He stared at me like I'd started speaking in tongues. What do you mean? He asked. I said, heart pounding. I have an entire closet full of skirts I barely wear and a frankly ridiculous number of pairs of pantyhose in different deniers. If part of you wants to know what that feels like from the inside, maybe we could find out. Together. Together, he repeated, almost dazed. I nodded, suddenly self-conscious. We'd have to set some boundaries. I'm not promising I'm comfortable with everything or that I want to see you fully decked out in my nicest dress tomorrow, but maybe we could start with, I don't know, picking a skirt and a pair of pantyhose and seeing how it feels when I'm actually here, not just some ominous specter you're hiding from. His eyes filled again. Jenna, he said, you don't have to. I don't want to pressure you. You're not pressuring me, I said. I'm offering, and I reserve the right to change my mind if it feels really weird. But I'd rather be weird with you than have you skulking around the laundry basket. He laughed, and this time it sounded lighter. Okay, he said. Okay, yeah, I'd like that. So much. Good, I said, trying very hard to ignore the way my own pulse had sped up. Then, come on. I slid out of bed, the floor cool under my feet, and motioned for him to follow. We padded down the hall to the closet, the house quiet around us. In the yellow light of the closet bulb, my wardrobe looked suddenly different, like a costume rack for a play we hadn't decided to perform until now. I sat down on the floor, cross-legged, and patted the spot across from me. Ethan folded himself down, knees knocking into mine. Okay, I said, reaching for the lower shelf where I kept my skirts. If we're doing this, we're doing it properly. No wrinkled backup skirts. Which ones are you drawn to? His eyes flicked over the hangers, hesitant. I don't want to stretch anything, he said. We're roughly the same size from the waist down, I pointed out. And if you ruin something, that's a very convenient excuse to buy new clothes. He huffed a laugh, tension easing. Honestly, he said, reaching out, that black A-line one, the swishy one you wore to your cousin's wedding, it looked fun. I tugged it free and laid it across my lap. Excellent choice, I said. Now, for the main event, I opened the little drawer where I kept my pantyhose. Sheer nude, opaque black, patterned, control top, cheap drugstore pairs I didn't mind sacrificing, and the one fancy brand I hoarded for special occasions. His eyes widened. That's a lot, he murmured. I always thought you just had, like, two. That's because they all live here in this chaos dimension, I said. So, what appeals? He bit his lip, thinking, then pointed. Those, he said, the sheer black. They always look elegant, like they make your legs into this smooth line. The way he said it made me feel strangely seen. I pulled the pair out, feeling how delicate they were between my fingers, and handed them to him. Okay, I said. Skirt, pantyhose, do you want to try heels too tonight, or is that an advanced level? His cheeks flushed. I kind of want the full set, he admitted, if that's okay. I admire your commitment, I said, turning to the shoe rack. We might have to play Goldilocks to find something that fits. We settled on a pair of black pumps with a modest heel, wider toe box, adjustable strap. They'd at least stay on his feet, even if they pinched a little. I handed him the bundle, skirt, pantyhose, heels, and sat back. Bathroom or here? I asked. Bathroom, he said immediately, then grimaced. Sorry, I just need a minute to, you know. Hey, I said softly. Take your time. I'll be right here. I promise I won't vanish while you're wrangling pantyhose. He managed a smile and disappeared into the bathroom, closing the door with a soft click. Alone in the closet, I stared at the racks of clothes and tried to catalog what was happening inside me. Was I turned on? Not exactly, or not in any way I recognized. I wasn't repulsed either. Mostly I felt nervous, protective, curious, like I was standing on the edge of something that could either bring us closer or crack us apart, and the only way to know was to step forward. After a few minutes of muffled rustling and one muttered curse, his voice floated out. Okay, he said. I think I'm ready. Remember you volunteered for this? I called back to break the tension. The door opened. He stepped into the doorway like someone emerging on stage for the first time. The sheer black pantyhose hugged his legs, softening the hair into a faint shadow. The black A-line skirt sat surprisingly well on his hips, hitting just above the knee. The pumps looked a little snug, but they stayed on. The straps buckled across his insteps. From the knees down, if I blurred my eyes, it could have been my lower body. From the knees up, it was very clearly my husband, in one of his old band t-shirts, face flushed, eyes huge. How does it feel? I asked, keeping my tone as steady as I could. He let out a shaky laugh. Like my brain is trying to reboot, he said. But also, like my skin fits. He took a cautious step, then another. The heels clicked softly on the hardwood. The skirt swayed. The nylon shone faintly in the closet light. A smile tugged at the corners of his mouth, tentative and then, slowly, real. You look good, I said. The words surprised me with how true they felt. Not in a copy of me way, in a you way. Yeah? He asked, hope flickering in his eyes. Yeah, I said. Come here before you fall over. He walked the few steps to me, concentrating way too hard on his footing, and then we both dissolved into laughter when he wobbled and grabbed the closet wall. Okay, maybe we practice heels on carpet next time, I said, reaching up to steady him by the waist. He looked down at me, expression open and vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. Thank you, he said quietly, for not freaking out, for this. I know it's a lot. It is, I agreed. But you're a lot, and I married all of you, even the parts I didn't know about yet. He sat down carefully on the floor beside me, tucking one leg under the other. The skirt fell around his thighs. The pantyhose caught the light. He wiggled his toes in the pumps and grinned like a kid in a costume. This feels weirdly peaceful, he said. Good, I replied. Our closet could use more peaceful energy. It's seen me cry over not fitting into jeans too many times. He laughed, then grew serious again. Is this going to change things? He asked. Like how you see me, how we are? Yes, I said, because honesty felt like the only way through. but maybe not in the way you're afraid of. I'm going to need time to get used to this. I might have days where I'm cranky about sharing my tights, or where seeing you in a skirt hits me weird. I might ask questions that sound dumb, but I don't suddenly see you as less of a man or less of my partner. I nudged his knee with mine. If anything, I said, I kind of see you as braver and oddly softer, in a good way, and I like that version of you. He blinked rapidly. I don't deserve you, he murmured. That's my line, I said, leaning my head on his shoulder. The band t shirt smelled like his usual detergent and something new, nylon and nerves and hope. We sat there on the closet floor, surrounded by clothes and shoes and the faint smell of dryer sheets, while the rest of the apartment hummed quietly beyond the door. There would be more conversations about how often he wanted to dress, about whether this was something he wanted to explore outside the house someday, about what language felt right. There would be boundaries to set and probably some missteps along the way. But in that small, cramped space, with his knee and pantyhose pressed against my leg and his heel occasionally slipping on the wood, I realized the thing that mattered most had already happened. He'd let me in, and I'd stayed. And that, more than the nylon or the skirt or the borrowed heels, felt like the real beginning of whatever came next.